Imagine waking up to discover that your entire world is about to be turned into a massive underwater grave in less than 3 days. That is the absolute nightmare our favorite prehistoric crew is forced to face as their frozen paradise literally turns into a giant ticking time bomb. And trust me, what starts as a chill day at camp quickly escalates into a wild fight for basic survival. We open up in the valley where global warming is low-key already starting to ruin everyone's vibe. Sid the Sloth is trying his absolute best to run a daycare center called Campo del Cid. Unfortunately for Sid, these prehistoric kids have zero respect for his authority. He is literally running around like a headless chicken trying to keep these chaotic little critters from acting completely unhinged. Every single attempt Sid makes to enforce basic safety rules gets instantly thrown back in his face. The kids even decide to treat Sid like a literal human piñata because they think he is a joke. They start beating him up with sticks while taking turns like it is a birthday party. When Sid passes out from the beating, the kids straight up decide to bury him alive. Luckily, Manny the mammoth and Diego the saber-toothed tiger walk in to break up the wild scene. Diego low-key encourages the kids, joking that Manny shouldn't ruin their creative energy. Sid gets up feeling totally humiliated and tries to act like he still has main character energy. Manny instantly roasts him, pointing out that Sid is a complete clown in multiple dialects. Even the little kid straight up threatens Sid to his face without dropping a beat. Manny reminds Sid that he has zero qualifications to be taking care of children. Sid gets super defensive and insists that he deserves way more respect from his crew. Feeling totally rejected, Sid storms off to prove to everyone that he is actually built different. Meanwhile, Manny is trying to read a wholesome bedtime story to a bunch of young animals. The kids immediately start picking apart Manny's story like modern internet critics. They keep throwing shade at the plot until Manny gets completely fed up with their questions. Diego steps in and ruins the wholesome story by telling the kids a tiger ate everyone, scaring them off. Suddenly, a huge crowd of animals goes into full panic mode because of rumors spreading. A scam artist named Fast Tony is out here hyping up an impending apocalypse. Fast Tony is basically running a prehistoric infomercial, trying to sell ridiculous junk to scared animals. He tries selling simple reeds as magical air-breathing gadgets for underwater survival. When his assistant messes up the demonstration, Fast Tony gets furious and yells at him. Manny confronts Fast Tony for spreading fake news and causing unnecessary mass hysteria. Fast Tony insists his weather forecast predicts catastrophic flooding followed by total destruction. Manny warns the crowd that Fast Tony would sell out his own family for a single snack. Manny argues that the ice has been here for thousands of years and will never disappear. Fast Tony snaps back by dropping a massive reality check on Manny about his species. He asks Manny when was the last time he ever saw another mammoth in real life. This hits Manny right in his feelings, forcing him to cope by denying the sad truth. Diego tries to comfort Manny by claiming mammoths are way too huge to ever disappear. Their deep conversation gets interrupted when animals notice someone standing on top of a massive cliff. Manny takes one look up and realizes that Sid is about to do something insanely foolish. Sid is standing at the edge of the high drop called the Eviscerator, ready to dive. Manny screams at him to freeze because the drop below is completely lethal. Sid screams down that he needs to do this jump so everyone finally shows him respect. Manny shouts back that the only respect Sid will get is at his own funeral. Diego starts sprinting up the cliff side, hoping to catch Sid before he takes the leap. Manny admits that Sid's stupidity literally knows no limits. Sid stalls his count just long enough for Manny and Diego to reach the peak. Sid leaps off anyway, forcing Diego to dive and snag him right in midair. They slam into the ice ledge hard, narrowly escaping a tragic drop into the dark deep. Sid whimpers because Diego's sharp claws are digging straight into his back. Sid notices how terrified Diego looks near the edge and low-key calls out his fear of water. While standing at the top of the ice wall, Manny suddenly freezes in absolute horror. He looks down and sees massive chunks of the glacier crumbling into deep water pools. The entire ice dam holding back the ocean is cracked to the brim and ready to burst. Sid tries to joke away the trauma by suggesting they transform into aquatic animals. Sid literally claims his new water persona is going to be called Squid. Back down in the valley, Fast Tony is still trying to scam everyone with fake bark rafts. An angry creature knocks Fast Tony out of the way, sick of his shameless hustling. Manny runs into the middle of the crowd and confirms that the apocalyptic news is real. He warns everyone that the massive ice wall above them is on the verge of collapsing. The entire bowl-shaped valley will be filled with rushing water in a matter of hours. Suddenly, a spooky vulture drops down from the sky to deliver the most grim forecast ever. The vulture explains that they are completely trapped inside a natural bowl that will fill up fast. He reveals that their only single chance of surviving is reaching the far side of the valley. At the very end of the valley, there is a massive wooden boat big enough for everyone. The vulture urges them to move immediately because the landscape is literally collapsing around them. They only have 3 days before the floodwaters reach the geyser fields and explode everything. The vulture sinisterly adds that the more animals die on the way, the better he eats. Diego sarcastically remarks on how unbelievably toxic that vulture is. Manny takes charge and tells the entire valley to start marching toward the boat immediately. He knows that staying put means guaranteed death, so they have to take the gamble. Within moments, thousands of animals start evacuating in a massive traffic jam. Vultures circle overhead like creepy storm clouds, waiting for anyone to drop dead. Some stubborn old animals even refuse to leave their homes despite the literal apocalypse. As Manny walks through the evacuating crowd, animals start pointing and whispering. Parents literally point Manny out to their kids, calling him the very last mammoth on Earth. Manny is forced to trek forward carrying the heavy emotional burden of being completely alone in the world. Sid is low-key annoying the entire squad while they gear up to dodge this incoming flood apocalypse. Manny is totally lost in his feels, wondering if he really is cooked and the last mammoth left alive. Sid tries to drop some emotional support, but his vibes are definitely not hitting the mark. Manny is holding onto a tiny shred of hope that maybe, just maybe, his species isn't totally wiped out. Out of nowhere, the crew hears strange rustling in the trees like a full-on jump scare is about to drop. Before anyone can react, tiny shadow figures start ambushing them out of the forest canopy. Manny steps back to clear his head, totally unaware that high-key chaos is about to unfold. The tension skyrockets as invisible attackers start launching pelt attacks from the high branches. Sid gets targeted first as these mysterious masked creatures turn him into a complete punching bag. It is absolute anarchy as two hyperactive little menaces start running rings around Diego. Diego tries to flex his apex predator energy, but these little dudes are dodging him effortlessly. The mysterious woodland ninjas are hurling lethal roasts along with physical attacks, keeping the squad confused. Sid tries to regain control of the situation, but he ends up taking absolute stray hits. The chaos turns into a full tactical operation as these two little guys coordinate their strikes. Diego swings and misses, getting completely clowned on by opponents 10 times smaller than him. Manny rushes back in to stop the beatdown before these mystery creatures take out his whole crew. The two attackers throw a smoke screen of wild excuses as soon as the massive mammoth steps up. Diego is ready to utterly shred them, but he stops dead in his tracks when he realizes what they actually are. It turns out these elite tactical fighters are literally just two chaotic possum brothers. But right as they prepare to retreat, a massive female mammoth suddenly drops down from the trees. Manny is completely flabbergasted because his deepest wish was just answered right before his eyes. The giant female casually shakes off the drop like falling out of giant oaks is a daily routine. Manny is staring in total awe, realizing he is officially not the last of his kind anymore. But the vibe instantly turns bizarre when she starts talking about her struggles holding onto tree limbs. She genuinely thinks she belongs up in the canopy, leaving Manny completely lost for words. She explains she was just up there checking on her chaotic little squad before the drama went down. Turns out, the two chaotic possums who just jumped Diego are actually her legal brothers. Manny tries to process the plot twist, hoping there might be an entire herd of mammoths nearby. She confidently claims her family is everywhere, but her description sounds suspiciously like rodents. Manny's brain is short-circuiting as he realizes this gigantic mammoth thinks she lives under rocks at night. She drops the wild lore that they hide in burrows so giant birds do not snatch them away. Sid is losing his mind over this insane plot twist, hyped that another mammoth exists. Sid points out the obvious elephant in the room, but she instantly denies her own identity. She drops a bomb on everyone by claiming she is absolutely, 100% not a mammoth. Manny stands there frozen, completely stunned that the only female mammoth left has main character identity crisis. Manny literally points at her massive trunk and tusks, but she is completely unbothered by logic. She insists she is a tiny possum, claiming her whole life has been lived high in the trees. She even starts introducing the Possum brothers as her biological family, leaving the squad dead silent. Crash and Eddie step up to defend her like she is their big biological sister. The mental gymnastics are on full display, but the apocalypse timer is still ticking down in the background. Sid low-key warns Manny that her elevator clearly does not go all the way to the top floor. Diego reminds Manny that when your species is literally dying out, you cannot afford to be picky. Sid takes charge of the matchmaking, offering her a spot in their survival squad to dodge the flood. The offer is on the table, but Ellie is definitely not sold on these weird strangers just yet. She hits them with top-tier sass, rejecting their offer like it is the absolute worst idea ever. Her possum brothers call a quick huddle to discuss the tactical advantages of joining forces. Crash and Eddie realize they are cooked if they try to trek through the dangerous wilderness alone. Traveling only after sunset is going to get them caught in the massive wall of melting water. The brothers convince her that having two massive bodyguards on open terrain is high-key necessary. Eddie drops the real truth that she and Manny might literally be the last duo on Earth. Manny gets super defensive, totally uncomfortable with everyone playing matchmaker for him. Ellie flips her stance and officially agrees to join the rescue trek to the boat. The possums try to flex their dominance, dropping dramatic conditions for their partnership. Manny already regrets accepting this deal as the brothers start acting completely unhinged. Crash and Eddie start flexing, attempting to challenge Manny and Diego to a full-on throwdown. Sid steps in to mediate the absolute circus, trying to keep everyone moving forward together. Against all odds, this chaotic, mismatched crew is officially trekking toward survival as a unit. Sid starts assigning cringe family roles, pushing the emotional bonding way too far. Manny shuts down the nonsense, keeping his eyes locked on the melting glaciers ahead. The stakes remain sky-high as the ice under their feet threatens to shatter at any second. Along the trail, they pass fast Tony hustling desperate animals with bogus survival gear. Manny gets super insecure about his size, insisting his poofy fur is the only culprit. Scammers are taking full advantage of the apocalyptic vibes, selling snake oil to gullible victims. Fast Tony tries to insult a giant creature to sell his fake diet pills, showing zero self-preservation. The absolute absurdity of the melting valley reaches an all-time high as scam artists thrive. Manny tries to pick up the pace, knowing the dam could rupture and wipe out the entire valley. Ellie is still acting like a hidden possum, creeping around stealthily despite being 5 tons. Crash and Eddie treat every single step like a covert Black Ops military mission in enemy territory. Suddenly, a shadow swoops over them and Ellie instantly drops to the floor playing dead. Sid looks at Manny like he should be doing tricks too, adding comedy to the high suspense trek. Ellie genuinely believes playing dead saved her life from a predatory bird tiny compared to her. Her complete delusion is both hilarious and low-key tragic as Manny tries to talk sense into her. She references her possum family history, completely trapped in her childhood trauma. Ellie feels deep sympathy for Manny's loneliness, ironic considering she is right in front of him. Manny drags her over to compare footprints, desperately trying to prove they are the exact same species. Crash tries to goad Manny into launching him into the pond using a bent tree like a high-stakes slingshot. Manny turns him down cold, but Sid steps in to remind everyone of the high-stakes narrative surrounding Ellie. Manny insists he is only trying to break Ellie out of her ridiculous delusional identity crisis. He genuinely does not care if she wants to live her life low-key role-playing as a rodent. The possums hit back with total sass, refusing to let the giant mammoth dictate who they are. Sid warns Manny that keeping up this argument is cooked, so he should just go with the flow. Crash doubles down on his chaotic request, demanding a full send launch into the water. When Manny hesitates, Crash hits him with the ultimate reverse psychology move to trigger his ego. Manny immediately takes the bait, stepping up to prove he is not too lame for the stunt. Sid nervously asks if Manny has ever pulled off a lethal tree catapult maneuver. Crash keeps demanding Manny bend the trunk back further until the suspense hits peak tension. Manny releases the tree, sending Crash soaring through the sky with wild adrenaline before he violently slams into a trunk. Ellie runs over completely horrified as Crash lies unmoving on the forest floor. Ellie blasts Manny for actually listening to a reckless possum's death wish. Eddie drops to his knees beside his brother, dramatically begging him not to step into the afterlife. Manny tries to offer help, but Ellie shuts him down instantly with pure main character rage. Eddie breaks down in hilarious despair, mourning his beloved partner in crime. He listing off all their absurdly foul antics, building up maximum comedic drama. Suddenly Crash snaps back to life like nothing happened, revealing the whole thing was a massive troll. The twin brothers celebrate their miraculous fake recovery while Manny stands there looking completely played. Ellie shakes her head fondly, admitting her crazy brothers keep life constantly chaotic. Ellie playfully scolds the boys for humiliating her right in front of the giant mammoth. Manny watches her walk away and low-key admits to Sid that she is pretty sweet despite being unhinged. Sid notices the spark instantly and asks Manny what is stopping him from making a move. When Manny brings up the trauma of losing his old family, Sid reminds him he has a second chance. Sid lays down the heaviest guilt trip possible, telling Manny that blowing this chance makes him totally selfish. Sid whispers to himself with high-key confidence that his matchmaker strategy is actually working. Up ahead, Ellie gets trapped under a heavy branch while trying to crawl under trees like a small rodent. She refuses to admit she is stuck because her mind still thinks she has a tiny possum body. Manny casually walks over and lifts the giant logs with his trunk like it is effortless light work. Ellie stops dead in her tracks as a wave of intense nostalgia triggers a suppressed memory. She gazes around the familiar clearing, finally connecting the dots of her mysterious childhood. She jokes about why she never fit in with the other kids, finally accepting the truth of her giant form. Manny takes his cue to shoot his shot, stumbling through a super awkward compliment. Ellie presses him for specifics, putting Manny on the absolute hottest seat of his life. Manny completely fumbles the flirt by focusing entirely on how massive her rear end is. Instead of saving himself, he doubles down with zero game and calls it the biggest he has ever seen. Surprisingly, Ellie finds his totally unpolished honesty super charming and sweet. She reflects on how utterly wild her day has been, transforming from a possum to a mammoth in hours. That night, Sid praises Manny for diving headfirst into the scary waters of romance. Diego acts completely stoic, trying to flex that apex predators do not experience fear. Sid calls Cap instantly, explaining that fear is a basic survival instinct that keeps animals alive. Sid opens up about his own vulnerability, admitting even sloths get terrified sometimes. He explains how sloths have endless natural predators who are low-key trying to wipe them out. Diego snaps back aggressively, refusing to let any sign of weakness show. Sid exposes Diego's secret water phobia, warning him that fear will consume him if he stays frozen. Sid acts like a personal life coach, encouraging the terrifying tiger to just trust his killer instincts. Diego tries to follow along with high suspense, nervously looking over his shoulder while simulating the motion. The moment Diego tries to visualize actual deep water, his confidence sinks like a heavy stone. Meanwhile, Manny approaches Ellie again to discuss their newly discovered shared identity. Ellie playfully bumps into him, still adjusting to her massive mammoth power. Manny tries to bring up repopulation, dropping the heaviest line about saving their entire species. Ellie snaps instantly, offended that he is hitting on her 5 minutes after meeting. She calls him out for treating romance like some boring civic duty to be fulfilled. She mocks his serious attitude, refusing to be treated like a mere survival obligation. Ellie completely shuts down the vibe, declaring that saving the species is off the table tonight. Sid watches Manny walk back defeated and asks how his romantic play turned out. With the group split in high drama, they are forced to keep moving through the dark night. Diego dryly mocks Manny for fumbling another friendship everywhere he steps. The path becomes intensely treacherous as they enter a region filled with hidden hazards. Ellie uses her possum brothers as petty middlemen so she does not have to speak to Manny. Crash translates her salty energy with full attitude, telling Manny to kick rocks. Manny tries to explain himself, but Ellie demands total personal distance. Suddenly, the ground beneath them cracks violently, forcing Manny to scream out a desperate command. The rocky terrain collapses into a terrifying abyss, leaving the entire group hanging by a thread. The possums joke around in high suspense while dangling over a lethal drop. Even while literally hanging off a crumbling cliff, Manny tries to argue his point. He makes it 10 times worse by telling Ellie that she totally overreacted. Sid and Diego yell at Manny from the ledge to just swallow his pride and apologize. Under immense pressure, Manny finally blurts out a forced apology just as the cliff face fractures. The entire rocky shelf collapses, triggering a high-stakes sprint for survival across breaking stones. They barely make it to solid ground, breathless and shaken after surviving absolute disaster. As night settles over the valley, the group rests with high suspense building for the looming deadline. Sid is feeling himself so hard thinking these mini sloths actually respect his main character energy. He thinks he is literally the ultimate god of flames right now. But the vibe shifts instantly when he realizes they are about to yeet him into a volcano as a sacrifice. Sid tries to warn them that frying him is going to bring absolute bad luck upon their whole tribe. Meanwhile, superheated geothermal magma is surging beneath the ice, speeding up the doom clock. The sloths are convinced that burning Sid alive is the only way to appease the gods and stop the flood. Sid realizes these guys are totally cooked and he needs to escape immediately. Crash wakes up covered in water and instantly blames Eddie for losing control. Manny snaps everyone back to reality because they oversleeping while the water is rapidly rising. Sid comes back claiming if they are the last survivors, they gotta rebuild society from scratch. Eddie shuts down that wild idea real quick since their options are literally zero. Sid tries to convince the squad that he was literally worshipped as a deity last night. He casually drops that his worshippers tossed him into a pit of fire, which the gang completely ignores. Manny warns everyone that the sea level is rising way faster than their actual walking pace. They look up and see a terrifying flock of vultures silently tracking their every step like final bosses. After pushing through, Sid tries to flex that they survived the ominous bird threat. But a sudden burst of scalding geyser steam makes Crash drop his guard in absolute fear. The path ahead is a total explosive geothermal minefield ready to blow anyone to pieces. Diego is not feeling this route at all because he low-key wants to stay uncooked. Manny stresses that turning back takes too long and the giant ice dam is going to snap any second. When Ellie calls Manny stubborn, he uses it as ultimate proof that he is a true mammoth. Sid thinks drowning low-key sounds peaceful compared to getting blown to smithereens by steam vents. Ellie gets super worried as Manny recklessly charges straight into the dangerous geyser field alone. Random animals in line for the boat start pointing at Manny, hyping up his extinction status. Ellie calls Manny out for his gigantic ego while the water pressure builds to a critical point. The lone vulture acts like a stressed-out flight attendant yelling at the panicking crowd. He literally threatens to turn rogue kids into lunch if parents lose sight of them. Crash and Eddie are frantically searching the overwhelming crowd to locate Ellie. They accidentally ask a random giant beast who stares right back at them confused. Diego tries to cope, hoping Ellie already secured a spot on the massive wooden ark. But cut to Ellie, who is trapped inside a collapsing rock cave as water pours in. Ellie shouts for help, urging Crash and Eddie to save themselves before it is too late. Crash and Eddie sprint to find Manny, screaming that Ellie is about to be submerged. Manny rushes back, but the terrifying sea monsters jump out of the floodwaters to block his path. As the floodwaters rage, Crash and Eddie get swept into deep water, triggering Diego's worst nightmare. Diego is hyperventilating on the edge, staring into the roaring current that usually paralyzes him. But seeing his brothers about to drown gives Diego the ultimate main character moment to lock in. Diego dives headfirst into the flood, paddling like crazy and rescuing both possums. Diego acts all nonchalant after saving them, pretending swimming was never a big deal. Meanwhile, Manny dives under the rising cave water, using pure brute strength to lift the massive boulders. Just as the sea monsters try to sneak attack Manny underwater, a massive ice collapse smashes the beasts. Manny breaks Ellie out of the cave just in time, pulling off an insane clutch save. Suddenly, the main ice dam snaps completely, unleashing an apocalyptic tidal wave upon the valley. But wait, Scred accidentally splits the entire glacier in two, creating a giant drain that instantly sucks away all the floodwater. With the valley totally saved and dry again, Sid decides he is going to teach swimming lessons. Out of nowhere, the entire mini sloth army shows up to bow down to Sid once again. They credit Sid with saving the whole world from the flood and beg him to lead their tribe forever. But Diego steps up and tells the sloths that Sid cannot stay because his true squad needs him. Diego admits that Sid is low-key the glue holding their weird little family together. Sid gets totally emotional hearing his best friend flex how much he actually means to the group. Sid tries to go in for an awkward hug, but Diego shuts down the physical contact real quick. Suddenly, the landscape clears, revealing a massive herd of living mammoths marching into the valley. Manny stands there in total shock, realizing he was never the last of his kind after all. Sid tells Manny that it is time to drop his emotional baggage so he can finally build a real future. Diego assures Manny that no matter where he goes, their brotherhood will stay unbroken. Manny gives Sid a huge hug, and Sid low-key tears up watching his big buddy move on. Sid wipes away a tear as Manny walks toward the mammoth herd to find Ellie. Manny catches up to Ellie and drops a super heartfelt confession right in front of everyone. He tells her he wants to be together not just to save their species, but because he genuinely loves her. Ellie smiles warmly, realizing Manny has finally unshielded his heart and embraced life again. Ellie accepts his proposal, bringing Crash and Eddie along into their awesome official squad. Sid thinks it is just going to be him and Diego roaming around like eternal bachelors. Diego sets firm boundaries with Sid, refusing to piggyback him through the wilderness. Sid instantly turns into an annoying kid, asking Manny who his favorite friend is. Manny picks Diego without missing a single beat, making Diego grin with total satisfaction. Sid complains that parents aren't allowed to pick favorites among their children. Manny roasted Sid so hard, breaking down their bizarre family hierarchy in the funniest way possible. Sid immediately pivots to asking if he can get a pet dog for the journey. Manny tries to establish ground rules, but Ellie instantly spoils Sid by saying yes. As the whole blended herd walks into the sunset, Sid gets carried away trying to play hero one last time. And just like that, the crew pulled off the ultimate post-apocalyptic W and survived the flood of the century. From Sid low-key becoming a god to Diego conquering his absolute biggest fear, this ending was pure peak cinema. If you enjoyed this insane ride through Ice Age 2, smash that like button right now to support the channel. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on the most hyped movie recaps on YouTube. Drop a comment down below with what blockbuster movie we should break down next, and I'll see you guys in the next video.